All right, everyone. Thanks for joining me for another Spin That Shit podcast. We got a great show for you, especially for the bluegrassers, country music in general. But the Po Ramblin Boys are with us. They got a new record coming out. CJ and Laura are with us, and we're going to talk about all kinds of good stuff. They know what they're doing. They've been at it for a while. They know good music, and I would call their style of bluegrass. I like to use the word crispy. I mean, it's a sharp driving sound, and they're a tight sound group. And that's definitely what you want in bluegrass style of music. They got it going on for sure. So, new record for them coming out. We're going to talk about all those little details. Their past music that's been out, I'm a fan. I don't think they have one bad song in their catalog. So, check them out. They're all over streaming platforms. They got live shows coming up here. I know they're playing in Kentucky down there at Josh Mitchum's place there in the barn, May 6th, I believe, somewhere in there. It's a Friday night. Check that out. They're also playing here in Indiana at the Bean Blossom Bluegrass Festival this summer. So looking forward to that. And before we start the episode, I do want to say thanks to everyone for joining, subscribing, liking, sharing. We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, of course. Just trying to spread the word and, get the word out there that this podcast is all about good music and trying to get people out of that bubble that they're stuck in of just listening to what's on country radio stations or what they call country music these days, pop music, whatever. There's just so much good content out there, and it just takes a little bit more effort of digging sometimes, and you can find just pure gold. So, for music lovers, share this with a friend that you might think that would enjoy it. But I'm done rambling. Let's go ahead and talk to CJ and Laura, and we'll catch you on the next one. Yeah, I've never been there.
I don't know. What's that?
I've never been there.
Oh, it's cool. It's cool. We play it quite a bit. And if you like theme parks.
And I did when I was younger. Now they just make me sick. Hi, Laura.
Hey, sorry, it took me a second to get my volume working there.
No problem.
Good to meet you.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have seen the show before, but it's pretty laid back. It's more or less just hanging out and conversating about good music.
Nice.
That sounds like my life. Awesome.
So, I'd like to kind of start off just kind of giving a background on how Po Ramblin Boys formed.
Okay. I guess I'll take that one. We started in 2014. I moved down to the Smoky Mountains in 2013. That summer I was working for the city of Gatlinburg. So we were doing some music related things there. And that actually ended pretty quickly. I believe the day that I moved here to sign the contract to live in the house that I still live in was the last day for that job. So I kind of moved down here jobless. And over the course of the summer, I'd met some friends that were working at Old Smoky Moonshine. And Old Smoky has music 7 days a week, 2 shifts a day at that time. So I started filling in with some people, Eli Johnston and Daryl Webb, Bo Isaac, Jerry Cole, several people. And anyhow, I was just kind of a fill-in guy. Well, eventually Bo Isaac and we got a little duo going on. And on Friday and Saturday nights, we would, while the main band was performing from 4 p.m. all the way till closing time, they wanted constant music. So the band would play 40 minutes and take a 20-minute break. And we would play in between. We'd play that 20-minute break. And so that's what we were doing, Bo and I. And so I became, I guess, part of the payroll and a more consistent person at Old Smoky. And later on, I just kept doing that and some fill-in work and whatnot. And in 2014, they were talking about opening up the second location in Pigeon Forge, the first location being in Gatlinburg. So the second location was opening up in Pigeon Forge, and The entertainment director, Matt Flake, he called me and said, we're interested in, we need more bands because there's going to be another stage opening up. Uh, we need a fifth band for sure, maybe a sixth. Would you want to run that band? And I said, well, maybe, but I don't really know of anybody down here in Tennessee that I would really want to do that with, but I got some guys in mind. So I immediately called Josh Wrinkle, called him and asked him about it. And he was running a sign shop in Shepherdsville, Kentucky. And I had actually left that job to come down here. So we were working together. It was he was running and owned. And then I called Jeremy immediately after that, same day. And he was working at a mobility place. They were making vans for wheelchair accessible vans and stuff. So he was doing that. And he kind of, yeah, maybe, I don't know. Let's think about it. So Josh pretty much dropped everything, came down here pretty quick. He'll do anything to make music. So he came down, and Jeremy came down, I don't know, a couple weeks following. And then Jasper was he was working in the bottle shop at Old Smoky. He was pouring the shots that you could sample, doing all the sampling stuff. And he'd been working down there for a while. And we'd all met Jasper at different times, but we were all friends previously. I had met Josh and Jeremy at Bill Monroe's home place, Jerusalem Ridge, Kentucky, in 2008. So we were all friends. I had lived in Kentucky for 3 years before I moved to Tennessee. So every Monday night we were all at a jam session together. Every Thursday night we were at Otter Creek Tavern, drinking beer and singing karaoke. And every Friday or Saturday, if we were off the road, we were picking or putting together a little show, going up to Louisville, doing something, going to Otter Creek Tavern and jamming. We were together all the time. So when I moved down here, it kind of disrupted that. But they were the guys that I immediately said, these are the guys I want to do some picking with. And so long story short, it all formed around that question of, do you want to start a band down here? And so I called the guys up that I'd been picking with for, since 2010 on and off, just having fun with. I was in the Carl Shiflett and Big Country Show at the time still. They were playing with Jeremy's dad, Tommy Brown, and the County Line Brass still. Jasper was playing with a band that was based out of the Gatlinburg area called Flickertail Holler. And we were just going to be a distillery band. That was it. We were going to stay there. We were going to make our paycheck. We were playing 5 days a week, 5 to 10 hours a day, making our day rate plus tips. And that was it. There was no intention of going any farther than that. And then from there, it's just kind of gone on. And then in 2020, Miss Laura Orshaw comes into the picture. So we met Laura in 2017 at Dr. Ralph Stanley's Festival in McClure, Virginia, and kind of hit it off there. And then later that year, I guess, we seen her at Old Tone in Hillsdale, New York, and jammed. We met her there at Ralph's, and then we actually got to play music with her at Hillsdale. And then her first show to play with us was at December of 2017 at the Station Inn in Nashville. And then in January 2020, she became an official member after already recording. At that time, I guess we'd already cut 2 albums, right? Yeah, 2 albums already with her on the fiddle.
So you're going to change the name to Po Ramblin Boys and Gals.
Yeah, that's been a question that's been asked a bunch of times.
True. Yeah, I don't know. I've always been in bluegrass music, and there's always a lot of guys, and I just get along. I get along with everybody, and we love bluegrass music, and it's been part of the history that a lot of the touring bands were men. I mean, the music started with Bill Monroe back in the 50s, and there weren't a lot of women that were touring. There were a lot of musicians who were women and women on recordings, but less than like the touring bands. So I don't know. We're like, we get that that's the history of it, and we like the band name kind of harkening back to that. But it's also kind of fun to like just play really, aggressive, what may seem as a masculine like style of bluegrass, the really traditional form, and have a lady on stage. So I
Yeah,
don't know. I kind of
that's
like that we
great.
kept the band name The Boys. It's fun.
It's
Some of the
definitely a
most
catchy name. I
some
like
of
the
the
name.
most aggressive bluegrass that was ever played. Look at Jimmy Martin and the Sunny Mountain Boys, and
Yeah,
Gloria Bell playing the bass to that, and then look at Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys. It's some of the most raw bluegrass that's ever been, and Bessie Lee was playing the bass on Lord knows how many of those recordings.
Yeah.
So you're listening to bluegrass music that's quote unquote played by girls, and you don't even know it.
yeah, yeah. I would. I like how. I mean, I don't know what your intentions are in the future as playing music, but me personally, I lean more to the traditional sound. I do listen a little bit of like the jam grass, not much though, but I guess when I was first introduced to it, it was more traditional, and I just kind of stayed in that lane. But I have no problem with people mixing it up. Some of the old timers I've met that taught me three-finger banjo, it was like, you got to do it this way or else it's not bluegrass and you're out of here. It's like, all right. But um, yeah. So, Laura, you started playing. I know you've done quite a bit on your own before you've entered. Can you kind of give me the rundown on that real quick of just how you got into playing music in the first
Oh,
place?
sure. Yeah. Yeah, I grew up around bluegrass. My dad plays and always had a band and had a bluegrass radio show, worked in a music store. So I was just around it all the time as a kid. And I was either gonna love it or hate it, I feel like. So I'm glad that I kind of like got into it and stuck with it because I've met so many amazing people and just started playing with regional bands where I grew up in Pennsylvania, New York area for quite a while. And then I moved up to the Boston area after going to the Joe Val Bluegrass Festival in Boston. And I met a bunch of cool people going to the Berklee College of Music there, and got to pick with like folks who played with Joe Val's band back in the day. So just a really fun scene that you like wouldn't guess is in Boston is there. And then I started playing with some more national touring bands. Did a few tours with Danny Paisley in the Southern Grass, which is where I met the Po Ramblin Boys, and then played for a few years with Alan Bybee in Grasstown before taking the gig with Po Ramblin Boys. So it's been a
Okay.
journey.
Nice. Oh, by the way, I'm supposed to tell you guys, Josh Mitchum wanted to say hi. Wanted me to
Well,
tell you that.
yeah, we're
He
playing.
was just on last week, and
Oh,
Oh
nice.
yeah.
he was telling me about the show they put together there in Kentucky in the
Oh
barn. You guys are playing in May, I believe.
yeah.
Yes.
That's gonna be my birthday party. Woo!
He
It's gonna be
he
rough.
told me to come down. I'm gonna try, but it's difficult because I'll be working in Springfield, Missouri I'm a taxidermist, so there's the big national convention and championships going on, so I'll be there.
Yeah.
So it'll be close if I can make it back on Friday evening.
You can do it. I feel you can do it. Try is a loophole.
I'll
The
try.
words of Josh Wrinkle, try is a loophole.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah. Springfield, you're in my old stomping grounds, man. I'm from Missouri.
Yeah, I will be. We go there every other year, it seems like. But
That's nice.
what so we've got two new singles out
Yes.
currently.
Now, yeah.
What can you tell me about moving forward? We got a whole album release date, or what's the details on
Yeah.
that?
We got a whole new album coming. Well, let's see, we've got another single that's going to be hitting the streets, and I don't necessarily know the date. It's going to be just a few days before the album. I think it's the 18th or something like that. We've got another single coming out before the actual release of the album. The release of the album is going to be March 25th, and it's on Smithsonian Folkways, as some people, if those of you who don't know who the Po Ramblin Boys are, we're artists of Smithsonian Folkways recordings now. and we're super tickled about that. This new project is awesome. I think it's a really good representation of what we all do, and I think it's a very good introduction of bringing Laura in too, because Laura's always been, she's been on, like we were saying, the past two projects, but she was just like the fiddle player on the album, and now that she's an official member, this is the first project since that announcement, and she's showcased a whole lot more. So instead of it being three singers and us doing the particular harmony that we usually do, it's four singers in a whole different variation of harmonies and stuff. So it's cool to see how it's evolved in the past, well, now 2 years, to be this the Po Ramblin Boys as what it is today, which is awesome, I think. And she brings a whole lot of different aspects to the band, not just fiddle playing, but vocally, even off stage too. She does a lot of different things, but we've got a lot of, I think this album shows a lot of diversity of what's going on. And what you were talking about earlier with, if it's not done this way, it's not traditional. I was preached that too. I'm from Missouri, where I grew up around first generation guys from Ozark bluegrass stuff and Missouri bluegrass guys. They were 50 years older than me, and they took me under their wing, which was incredible. But sometimes in life you got to like find your music, and that's what Monroe was doing. That's what Jimmy was doing. That's what the Osborne brothers did. That's what all these guys were doing back in their time and their heyday. And you listen to it now, and it's under this umbrella of traditional bluegrass music. But when you listen to those guys from that era, they were all completely different from one another. And I think that's what we want to do. We want to be like what traditional bluegrass would be today. Just because you don't play it like Earl did doesn't mean it's not traditional. So
Right.
I think we want to take it. We want to be real with ourselves. We want to play what we feel, what would be real and authentic and traditional, if you want to use that terminology. So I think that's what this album is representing. So I think we're pulling out songs. Josh has recorded, or we've recorded two of Josh's original songs, the guitar player on the album, guitar player of the band from the very beginning, the first guy that I called, which we've recorded several of his songs, but we pulled out two new ones. We were throwing back like we always do, and bringing in a George Jones song because we all love George Jones. But the cool take on this one is, I guess our first ever record that we did, I sang a George Jones song. The second record that we did, Josh sang the George Jones song, and this record, Laura's singing the George Jones song. So we're keeping the tradition going on with like, let's put a George Jones song on every album. But
Yeah.
it's a new perspective on it. So we've got a lot of cool things. We're paying homage, but we're also bringing new songs to light. But if I wouldn't tell you what the new songs are, you might not know it, because a lot of these songs, they're written in an old format. So you could say that they're quote unquote traditional songs, and then we've got some songs with some ass to them, to where I hope I can say that, that
say whatever you want.
That's got some, different subject matter to them. That's quite a bit different, and Laura can hit on those because she's singing. Well, she's definitely singing two of them. She's singing Old Time Angels and Ramblin' Woman.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Laura.
Yeah, it's just I don't know, listening to bluegrass music, and I love lyrics. I love that Josh is a songwriter and we get to sing and arrange new songs. And I've been doing some co-writes with him. And I also find when I'm like going through old records or like going down a YouTube rabbit hole, like you just find stuff that even was recorded by people who you might recognize their names, them. They're like even legends in the industry, but like it's just a song that wasn't really showcased. It wasn't on the A side of the record. It wasn't
Right.
on the charts. So it's fun. Like we all love kind of like discovering those songs and bringing them to life and putting our spin on them. A lot of times when I'm doing that, like I have to do them in a very different key than like the guy singers, or I have to change the words around to like try to make it make sense from a woman's point of view, which like sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. So it's fine. Like sometimes I'll throw a song to CJ and be like, dude, this song is amazing. It does not work when I sing it. You need to try it. So we do a lot of that in prep for an album. And it was fun for me. I found a couple songs this time that I thought really like rung true from my side of things. And one was Ramblin' Woman, we just recently put out as a single. And that comes from Hazel Dickens, just like Hazel and Alice are my, total
Yeah,
heroes.
I love
Love
them.
everything they've done. And just, I mean, piercing vocals that speak right to your heart and that old time ballad style. So I was, always psyched to try to record or learn one of Hazel's songs. It's a little bit like, oh my gosh, when you want to record something that Hazel did, like you better be able to do a good job.
It's very
But
unique sound that she has. So yeah,
yeah, I
it's
mean, it's
hard to
kind of an
deliver.
acquired taste, but oh my gosh, it's so true and authentic and real, and I just can't get enough of it. So with Ramblin' Woman, I wanted to figure out my first lead vocal to have as a single with the band. And, just like the question you asked, like everybody is kind of like, the Po Ramblin' Boys. Oh, surprise. Who's this? Who's this girl? So the song was just perfect from that perspective. Hazel wrote it almost like kind of poking fun at all the songs about, rambling men out there through the
Yep.
years. And she's just saying, hey, I'm a rambling woman and I hope you understand. So it was fun to do it. And I think that especially exciting for me, like I love the drive that this band has with the fast 3/4 time, fast waltz time songs. We have a lot of them that we do and love. And so to be able to like have a fast waltz song might be a little too music theory-ish here for people, but you'll get it when you hear it. It was really fun too, just to have the guys and the rhythm and the energy behind that song.
Nice. Who else? We've thrown out a bunch of names so far, but like, who do you think would be your top influence, like artists that you've always looked up to?
Man, I guess on fiddle, Richard Green. I really love Richard Green's playing. He played with Monroe and a bunch of other
Yeah.
folks. Tex Logan was playing with Don Silver
Yes.
and the Lilly Brothers. So just like, they were inspired by all of those greats, Chubby Wise and everybody, Kenny Baker, but they have a little bit of a cool edge and really fun like double stops to their playing that I try to channel. And then I don't know, singers is like all over the map. I think I listen to a lot of like honky tonk country music, like 1950s classic country.
No.
So a lot of those artists like Wilma Lee Cooper and Kitty Wells are my inspirations. I don't know. What about you, Siege? You have a lot of
I got a
bluegrass
lot,
music
I think.
heroes.
I yeah, I'm big into heroes. uh
You can only pick three, so make it this make it difficult.
okay,
Yeah.
difficult. Well, I I'm big. I'm a sing. I like to sing. So I'm gonna pick two singers and a mandolin player. I think that's what I'm gonna do. And I think I'm gonna pick a singer that is a mandolin player because that'll help. One of my biggest influences all over the map is a guy named Don Brown. He's from the state of Missouri. Like he was my when I was a kid, I wanted to be Don Brown so bad. He could hit, and his one thing to wrap it up was his biggest thing was he wanted to play like Bill Monroe and sing like Jimmy Martin. So there's two other influences wrapped up in Don Brown so there's that. And I think that's why I like Don Brown so much. But he had his own material, which we recorded one on this new album too. That was Don's. But man, like Earl Taylor, singer and mandolin player. Earl Taylor was a damn machine gun on the mandolin, and I listen to people's phrasing I love people's phrasing. And even though I might not be able to sing like in the same keys as some of these people, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to do 4. Bobby Osborne. Bobby Osborne, I can't sing as high as Bobby Osborne, but I will always listen to Bobby Osborne's phrasing because it is the best. And from a country side of things, George Jones is my man. I was singing George Jones stuff. I just got a new old guitar, and I was sitting there just feeling open E and open A chord last night, and I was just trying to sing some of his 50 stuff last night, and I was getting into it. So George, yep, King George.
I love George. If you don't like George Jones, you probably shouldn't be listening to this podcast.
Hey man, that should be your slogan, man.
Bobby Osborne, man, like I remember seeing him down there in Bean Blossom at the Bluegrass Festival.
Yes.
And everybody be talking, and he'd walk up to the mic and start off with a Ruby.
Oh yeah.
And so loud, and everyone would shut up and like their head would snap towards the stage to see what the heck was getting ready to happen. Like he demanded attention up there.
And he doesn't even mean to do it. He just does it. He's so, he's the classic. He's a star. He's a star, and he doesn't even know that he is. When you talk to Bobby, he's just like, he's Bobby. He's cool. Like he loves to dress up and everything. He gets in his crazy color suits and his hats and but when he's just a guy, and like when you comment and say how much you love him and say how awesome he is and how much he has influenced you, he's just like, well, I don't know about that. I don't know why I do that. I don't know how, like, he just, and then he talks about like how we're talking about him right now. He talks about like Tubb and Monroe and Lester and Earl. Like he was in all, when he's an Opry member, and he was at the Opry, and he was backstage watching these guys, Ernest Tubb and Flatt and Scruggs and Bill Monroe, and he's freaking out like we're freaking out.
Yeah,
it's like he's another guy, and that's what makes Bobby is such a natural talent. That's what makes him a star. He just gets up there and he does it. He doesn't have to try. It's I love it. I love it, man. He's my buddy.
I think my biggest one as far as bluegrass is concerned is I fell in love with the Carter or Stanley brothers.
Oh yeah.
I love their harmonies together, and man, then Ralph off, he went on and have a great career all these years too.
That's a big influence band as a whole. As a whole, that's a huge. Ralph and Carter, in any variation of the Clinch Mountain Boys, probably that's a really big influence on us. Jeremy and Josh, they were really close with Ralph, and I got pretty close with Ralph there towards the end of his life. And that's always been I was a big Stanley Brothers fan, younger in life. And then when I met, I was a big Tommy Brown fan because of that Stanley sound, and Josh and Jeremy was playing on stage with them. So, but they were playing the same venues as Ralph was. And in St. Louis, Ralph didn't show up, over that on that side of the river. So I seen Ralph the first time at the Fox Theater downtown St. Louis for the Down from the Mountain tour after Old Brother Where Art Thou. And he was the guy on that tour, right? He was sitting behind his record table in the lobby. You could walk up to that guy and talk to him and get his autograph. For a 13-year-old kid, like, I just heard his voice on the movie, and I knew who he was, but to walk into that lobby of that, huge theater and see Ralph right there, you could walk right up to him. Jack Cook was right there next to him, and man, that was awesome. And then from then on, I could approach him and talk stories and whatnot, but Jeremy and Josh was real close to him. And then from there too, like Larry Sparks, he was a He was
Yeah.
influenced from Stanley Sound and then took on his own. Sparks is amazing. There's so many good artists that have took the traditional sounds and then made it their own, in different ways.
Right. I have this, I don't know how rare it is or it's unique because I don't know anyone else that has it, and I haven't been able to find anything about it online. Just like you were saying, Ralph was sitting at the table after a show. This is down there at Bill Monroe's campground and Bean Blossom. Went up there and they had some albums on the table, like is normal. And this is back when people were still buying CDs. And they had, they just looked like they were almost cut at home with a sticker on them. But it was the last performance that Carter Stanley and him together did, and it happened to be live there in Bean Blossom.
Oh, wow.
I gotta get this, and he signed it for me too. But since then, I haven't seen it anywhere. Like, I don't know how rare that is or what, but it seems like I got a little piece of history or something.
He did a lot of. He had so many live recordings, and I think Ralph too is branching into that. It seems like he's got a lot of that stuff he's been putting out especially since Dr. Ralph's passing. He's been branching out and putting out, which obviously it's not the last time that Ralph and Carter sang together, but there's a lot of recordings that have been released here lately of them doing live shows. And I love live shows. There's so much, well, for lack of better terms, there's so much life in them because they're live shows, but there's little just nuances and stuff that you don't catch in recordings. And the banter back and forth and whatnot, man, that's classic.
Right.
It's so good, so priceless.
Good commentary in between songs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you worked on a record, Toil, Tears, and Trouble, and that was nominated for Best Bluegrass Album, right? 2019.
Yeah, Grammy nomination in 2019, and that really put us on the map. That was on Rounder Records, and Rounder really helped us a whole lot. And that put us in a different category and made us really aware of what we could do, I guess, with our music. And when it came time to cut another album, I think we still had that in our mind of what we could potentially do with our music. And so when we approached Rounder to do another album, they were ready to do it, and we were ready to do it as well. But we just wanted to. At the time, we were all sitting at home. It was in the middle of a global pandemic, so we couldn't even see each other half the time. So we didn't know what to do. And to me, when I was sitting at home, and I think Laura could probably vouch for this too, what we were watching online was a lot of, live streams and things like that, to where people were asking for money or charging a price. And we'd done a few of those too, but I found that they had to be really good production, and you could only do a certain few of them because the first one was going to be good. People were probably going to give you a little bit of money. But if you did one once a week or you did one once a month, you were going to exhaust your audience. And also it was, I don't know, it just didn't feel right to be trying to do that so much. If you're going to do it one or two good times and do it with a good production. And so we did, I don't know, 2 or 3 of them. And we were just like, we need to concentrate our time on something else. And I think we were all thinking an album, but we were all thinking it separately at our own homes. And so we started working on an album, actually without Rounder's permission. We started working on an album. So we cut a few tracks just to feel creative, just to get to do something, because we hadn't done anything in so long. Laura, didn't you cut some fiddle tracks at home first?
Yeah, I mean, y'all were able to get together eventually.
Yeah.
In East Tennessee. but I was in Boston, and between my job and the travel restrictions and everything, I couldn't get down. So I just bought recording equipment and cut fiddle tracks up here.
And that's how the project started, was us getting together and being like, well, let's record some of Josh's material, and let's record this one. I'd like to cut this one. I'd like to cut this one. Let's just get some stuff down. Even whether there's one track that we cut that's not even on the album. It's just we wanted to record. And even the studio we were at too, they were just like, y'all want to record some stuff at Sound Biscuit and Sevierville? Because he wanted to work. He wanted to do something too.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. And we sent some of it to Rounder, and Rounder was cool with it. Everything was good. They wanted, they started sending material. So everything started churning there. All the wheels started turning. Everything started moving. But our management company at the time, they were really, which I agreed with it. They were really strict on a marketing plan because, again, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. The biggest thing right now is we can't tour. We can't push an album. How in the world are we going to get this to the world? So they wanted a marketing plan, like a specific marketing plan of how this is going to roll out via social media, via the internet, via all the digital platforms that we can push this out. Like, we need to see this, how this is going to work. Have you adapted to what's happening in these times?
Yeah.
And it wasn't shown as much as we wanted it to go. The management company didn't like what was presented. So they said, well, I think we can do better. I think we can put out an album ourselves. And I freaked out about that. I said, I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. I don't have the knowledge to put out an album. We've got enough stuff on our plate. We all have jobs as band members. And that's what makes the Po Ramblin Boys so successful, is that we all have our own unique abilities. Jeremy is a great sound guy and great sound engineer. And now we have Eddie Ferris as well, who's the front of the house guy. So them two work together really well. Laura and Josh is doing advancing, and she's on the computer all the time helping us. She's managing all these podcasts that we're doing now, and so she's doing a lot of managerial stuff. I'm doing a lot of managing stuff and managing money and this, that, and the other. Jasper's the merchandise guy. And then on top of all that, we've got a bus that we need to take care of. And so some of us are shade tree mechanics and cleaning crew. And so we all work together to make everything work. So I was like, I don't think we need this on top of everything we already do.
Right.
So I remembered John Smith. I was in a thing called Leadership Bluegrass, which is a part of IBMA, International Bluegrass Music Association. They pick 25 people a year to become quote unquote a class of whatever year Leadership Bluegrass. And it's a 3-day event that y'all get together, and it's pretty intense. You have 5 or 6 presentations a day with other professional people that cover all kinds of broad subjects, broad spectrums, just because you have potential to be a leader in the bluegrass world, in the future. So in 2017, I was one of those selected people, and John Smith, who is the head of Smithsonian Folkways Records, was in that as well. And so that's how we got connected. We didn't necessarily talk, but we just knew each other. And that following year, I guess it was, we were at Pickathon in Oregon, and he came up to me and asked how everything was going with the Rounder project and this, that, and the other. And he just made kind of, if you ever need a change, you ever want to do anything, blah, 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 keep Smithsonian Folkways in mind. Because, labels have that thing of, you can't approach someone on a label and offer them anything if they're on a label. So he was just kind
Right.
of like, if you ever need anything, holler at me. So I just always kept that in my back pocket, and that's who immediately I called when this thing of like, let's put an album out ourselves. Like, man, I don't think so. So Smithsonian Folkways was the first thing that I called, and the one thing I wanted to keep in mind was Rounder Records is a historic label. Like, they've put out some of the best material that's ever been in bluegrass music. What would we do without Rounder 0044? That's one of the, well, all the Alison Krauss stuff, all the you could go on and on and on. The Joe Val material, man, so much good stuff. But what were we going to do? Because we needed to make either a lateral move or an up move. And so we needed to figure that out. And I felt that Smithsonian would be one of those two. And it ended up working out really well. And we're super tickled. And I can't wait for you guys to hear the project. I'm hoping you guys like it a lot.
Well, I mean, I like everything you guys have out currently, so I'm sure it won't be a stretch to like the new one. My favorite song actually is "Ice on the Timber."
Oh man,
I love that song. I think it's underrated out of your catalog.
Yeah,
I mean,
we brought that one back. We hadn't been doing it for a while, but we brought that one back into the catalog, or into the live shows. Laura's actually, that's one of her jobs too, that she probably doesn't like to do sometimes, but we kind of, one day we're like, hey Laura, can you do this? And she's been putting together the shows, and she brought back Ice on the Timber and put it on the sets, and that got a lot of radio airplay.
Did it?
And yeah, that got a lot of radio airplay. And that's a song. Frank Ray, a guy from my home county, actually, he plays in a band called Cedar Hill. He's had that band for 50 years, but I grew up around Frank, and I used to go get lessons from Frank. And I would travel around with him some. He was one of those kind of first generation Missouri bluegrass artists. And I remember when he first wrote that song, that's a true story that was told to him by his grandfather, who lived in like northeast Arkansas in the Ozark Mountains. And that his grandfather knew that family that all that stuff happened to. And he carried that with him. And Frank remembers his grandpa telling him that story. And I remember in about 2000, and I don't remember the exact year, but it was the early 2000s. I was sitting in Eminence, Missouri at a festival. They used to have it was called the Cross Country Trail Rides. They used to have a festival there, and it was in a big horse arena. And they had this little, they used to deal in vintage instruments, and they had this little side shack thing that they had the instruments in. And Frank started playing that one dun 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 dun, and he started singing the song, and he hadn't had it finished yet. He just started. He played, I don't know, just parts of the verses, and then he started singing the chorus, and he kept, "Oh Lord, it was cold," and I don't know if I'll ever forget that, but then they recorded it later on, and I remembered that song, and I always felt like I wanted to record it sometime.
Yeah,
it worked out. Yeah, I love that song. Spooky.
It is spooky. That's a lot of bluegrass has that bright, uplifting sound, but then if you really start listening to the lyrics, some of it's pretty damn dark.
Yeah, scare the hell out of you.
Yeah. So
we've got one on the new album that's kind of like that. Me and Laura kind of share that one, right, Laura? Don't you think Take My Ashes to the River's kind of like that?
Yeah, totally. And actually, it's funny. It sounds like it's, one of the murder ballads. If you're not listening to the words, like the vibe of it is just like, oh, cool, this is another like murder ballad thing.
But
And
that's a love
and then
song.
like you listen to the words and you're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Not a murder ballad. It's a really intricate story about this wife who like gets sick with the fever and dies, and her husband is taking care of her, and they have like, you know, this Romeo Juliet forbidden love thing. And her last request was to take her ashes to the river and,
Yep.
you know, spread her ashes in the river. And just the way it's like written too, like there's a lot of opportunity for like kind of call and response stuff. It's like a little spooky, and the chorus, we're all kind
Yeah.
of building the harmony parts. But I don't know, that was a fun one to arrange because the lyrics were so interesting and the story was so interesting. But unless you like really listen to it, you probably won't, you know, catch. You have to like really listen to the words.
And
Yeah,
actually,
I'll definitely be checking that one out now.
that's
Get the
Yeah.
backstory.
that's kind of a cool song too, because not well lyrically, definitely, and the arrangement and everything, but that's a song that marks like the segue from labels, from Rounder Records to Smithsonian Folkways, because Ken Irwin actually brought that song to us from Rounder Records. And when we were putting together everything for Smithsonian, I reached out to Ken and I said, now, you know, we had already left Rounder, and I reached out to Ken and I said, Ken, we really love this song and we really love your input. He's a plethora of material. And I said, what do you think about us doing this? And he said, that's fine with me. Go ahead, take it. And so that's kind of neat to have, you know, a song influenced by a founder of Rounder Records on this new label and new project. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. How many
Tidbit.
tracks are on this new record?
There's 11.
11.
There would be more. Like I like more songs on a record, but the one thing that we wanted to keep in mind was we're pressing vinyl, and vinyl you can have no more than 35 minutes. So instead of going, well, folks, we need 13, we're going to have 13 tracks. It's actually, we got to have 13 or 35, no more than 35 minutes. So we hit right at like 34 something. And that's all we could fit. You know, obviously you can fit more on a CD, but
Right.
for those listening, we're not going to have vinyl immediately on March 25th because of the pandemic and shortage of work and all this stuff. There's a lot of things happening, and from what I understand with Smithsonian Folkways, the order for vinyl is so backed up with vinyl right now
That's
that
what I'm hearing from everyone.
we're probably looking at another release of vinyl in like June. So if you want vinyl, that's probably that's hopefully that's when it's going to come out. And we don't even know an exact date, but they're hoping June will be the time for that.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, so it is coming out. We just don't know when.
Well, I appreciate your guys' time chatting with me. We'll have to have you on in the future, maybe after this gets released and gets out in the world for a little bit, or I'll catch you at a festival or something. We can do one in person.
Yeah, that'd be fine, man. I appreciate you having us on.
Where should we tell the folks to find your material? Website or just all social media?
Yeah, you can find us on the PoRamblinBoys.com. That's P-O Ramblin with no G boys, PoRamblinBoys.com. And that's where you can get a hard copy, or Smithsonian Folkways, or Amazon. That's for all the hard copy stuff, but we're on all the digital formats as well. You can pre-order now and get Ramblin' Woman and The Blues Are Close at Hand. Also, Instagram, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook and all that other good stuff. And Laura's actually got a new album coming out as well. You want to tell them about that too, Laura, and your website?
You just dropped a new song today, didn't you?
Yeah.
I heard it like 5 minutes
actually.
before you guys jumped on. I
Oh,
just turned it
man.
on.
It's a fun one for that like country vibe, with Trey Hensley singing a duet with me called On Her Own. But yeah, I'm working on a album as well, a solo project, and it's been really fun to do this kind of alongside the guys in the Po Ramblin Boys because we're always passing material back and forth and arrangement ideas. And there's a co-write on my album that I did with Josh. Um, so you'll get to hear a lot of that material too live out with the Po Ramblin Boys. But that project is coming out on Dark Shadow Recording on May 25th. And so far I've got 2 singles out there already, so folks can check those out.
Okay. Good deal.
Mm-hmm.
Music all the time. All right. Well, you guys enjoy the rest of the weekend, and
Awesome.
I'll chat with you later. So
Cool.
All right,
Thanks so much for having us.
all right. Take care.
All right, y'all be careful.